go.
All right. Good morning. This is the Monday, February 11th meeting, special meeting of the Railroad Transportation Safety District. I am Chairperson Deb Shore. On my far left, we have a new district board member, Rick Vest, representing the county board. Vice Chair Roy Christensen from the City Council. Also from the City Council, we have Jane Raybold, and then a returning member from the county board, Jennifer Brinkman. This meeting of the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. The RTSD agenda and all the materials that are being considered at today's meeting are posted on the website on Friday, February 1st, 2019. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County's official government sites. In addition, on February 4th, 2019, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin board located in City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. One copy of the meeting agenda and all the materials being considered today are located at the dais, and complete copies of these materials are on file at the RTSD website office at 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200. With that, we'll open the meeting, and first item in the agenda is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on December 3rd.
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Any comments or corrections? If not, call the roll, please.
Brinkman?
Abstain.
Christensen?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries. 3 yeses and 2 abstentions. Item 4 on the agenda, consideration of the city sales tax interlocal agreement. And we'll invite Mr. Hoppy forward at this time to provide a brief overview.
Commissioners, council members, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. I am Rick Hoppy. I'm Mayor Beitler's Chief of Staff. And I want to chat just a little bit about the background concerning an important transportation issue for both the City of Lincoln and the County of Lancaster. A transportation coalition was appointed last year to examine Lincoln's roads needs, and they made a rather eye-opening conclusion that there was a $33 million annual shortfall in the amount of money we should be spending on our streets. $28 million or so in operations and maintenance type activities, about $7 million in traffic signals, smart optimization, and another $5 million in new construction. Ms. Brinkman was on that board, as was your county engineer, Pam Dingman. So that was where we started a conversation about how to fill that gap. And as everyone probably is aware, the Nebraska legislature has authorized municipalities to pass up to a half-cent sales tax for capital projects. Upon the recommendation of the coalition to try to inject $20 to $28 million additional each year, we began to talk about how we could use this local sales tax option in order to fill this gap. And without taking you through 2 years of negotiations, where this boiled down to was a quarter-cent sales tax, of which I'm handing you a summary. And the legislation actually passed by the City Council last week. Briefly, a quarter-cent sales tax generates about $13 million annually. So at the end, and it's a 6-year agreement, which would start October 1st, 2019. You got to start at a quarter system based on what the state is saying. It would generate about $78 million. And the idea here is to start avoiding expensive reconstruction. We haven't done enough maintenance on our streets, which is far cheaper. It has led to us putting a lot of our dollars into much more expensive reconstruction projects. But in order to get to a point where you're paying more maintenance than reconstruction, you got to have an injection of dollars to get you to that point. And that's the impetus behind this proposal in front of you. I won't bore you with the details of what it can be spent on, but generally street improvements is the guiding principle here. 25% of that revenue is guaranteed for new construction. We want to make sure that we're doing economic growth projects, and we are behind there. We do have a couple things on here that the funding cannot be used for. Many people in the community were very adamant that this not be used for anything except concrete curb to curb, and so we wrote the language to be very clear that this was about streets and streets only. There will be a Citizens Oversight Committee to help us work with guiding the spending that would go on here. And in a separate resolution, there was a conversation about freezing impact fees. I think many in the home building community felt it was a matter of fairness in light of the fact that many of the materials and items that they would be using in building homes would be bearing an increased cost according to the quarter-cent sales tax. So we took this piece of legislation I had in front of you, a sales tax resolution, and then the impact fee freeze, and another piece, the interlocal agreement with the RTSD to the City Council. And what you'll note in what I handed out to you on page 3, I believe, in sub number 5, lines 16 through 21, is the mention of the interlocal agreement. And in the sales tax resolution that will be on the ballot, the actual ballot language, we talk about 1.5% of the revenues generated from the sales tax going to the 33rd and Cornhusker project. It is important to note that by state law, we need to have some sort of interlocal in order to have a sales tax vote at all. As I continue to shuffle papers here, here are the statutes that I think are relevant to this conversation that essentially say two things. One, that you do have to indeed have that sales tax, that you have to have that interlocal agreement. It also suggests that you need to put a percentage or amount that you intend to spend on that interlocal agreement, and that you have to have some benchmarks put in place for that interlocal agreement. Now, as we talked about this at the city level, the biggest, most important joint project going on right now is the 33rd and Cornhusker area project. There's already an existing interlocal agreement governing that. We thought it might make sense to focus our time and attention on furthering that project in order to satisfy not only the state requirements, but to make further progress on an issue that is extremely important, not just to Northeast and Northwest Lincoln, but to the entire community. So that language then was put in the ballot language for the sales tax resolution regarding an interlocal with the RTSD, with 1.5% of the revenues going to that purpose. We think 1.5% is in the neighborhood of about $1.2, $1.3 million if we do generate $13 million a year. Obviously, it could be a little bit more than that if sales tax projections come in higher than we anticipated. So that language is there. Now, that was a lot of background to get you to this, which is what you'll be voting on today. This is the actual interlocal agreement. I'm just going to point out a couple of highlights as that's going around. I'm going to start on attachment A, which is the second page in your document. And after you get through the whereases, you get to the therefore. And the therefore number 1 talks about an administrative committee that consists of the mayor, the director of the Transportation Utilities Department, the city engineer, the chairperson of the RTSD, and the executive director or designated representatives, forming this advisory administrative committee to govern the use of the money that we're talking about here. Now, just to be clear, that is only the money we're talking about in this agreement, not the wider 33rd and Cornhusker. That's your ballpark. We just have to have that piece governed by this administrative committee to satisfy the requirements of state law. We talk about the 1.5%. And then you can see in number 3, we talk a little bit about establishing the benchmarks that I handed out from the statute. Basically, it says that the administrative committee or the state legislature would establish those benchmarks. And Commissioner Brinkman had written me an email asking why the 6 years. And Mr. Connolly in our law department chose the 6 years based primarily because that was the length of the sales tax. So while this agreement is longer than the 6 years, we probably at the end of 6 years would, if it's successful, ask for an extension of that sales tax for our citizens, and then probably establish another timeline and a new set of benchmarks. This only takes effect if the voters pass the sales tax on April 9th of this year. And I think that pretty much covers what's in the agreement. I'm sure Mr. Feigard has some information for you about how that money will be spent, and he's certainly better to talk about that than I. And that's about what I have to contribute.
Questions for Rick? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Roger, do you have some additional information regarding the resolution or the use of funds?
The resolution was posted on the website, and you also had copies of that. I think it might be a little premature, other than to indicate the next steps. 33rd and Cornhusker is completing the negotiations for the environmental and some early preliminary design. And clearly, the resources that are being identified in this document would be consistent with using in that activity. So, but our administrative committee has not yet met and would bring back a recommendation. But this would fit perfectly with just where the city and the RTSD have been and where we're headed with 33rd and Cornhusker.
Questions?
I have one, Roger, if you don't mind. The agreement allocates 1.5% to the RTSD. Do we incur any expenses, or is that just simply a check we'll be receiving from the city who's collecting the taxes?
It might be better to have the city come forward, but my understanding is the city would be collecting, and then there would just be a transfer of those funds when the RTSD can show an appropriate expenditure or use of those funds for the committee and the city.
Related to the
Yeah.
project that's been
I don't
identified.
see it as being anything but an easy administrative activity, and function should be fairly smooth and shouldn't be any additional cost to the RTSD.
We just probably see an additional revenue line
Yes.
on the,
We certainly would track
Just
and
statement.
document to be able to account for any audit, and for, I know the city's going to have an oversight committee, and we want to make sure that the RTSD is transparent and it's crystal clear where those funds were going and how they were spent.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
for clarification purposes, the agreement that Rick just passed out does not have the insert that was requested by Cindy Lamb to include the words "and the administrative committee." So
Yes, I would ask, my understanding is I copied for the website and gave you copies of what I believe the resolution in front of the city council as passed would be with that insert. Whatever original document goes, we will check, and that's what the board would be approving.
Ms. Shore, thank you for pointing that out. I took it from the council agenda, and that did not reflect the amendment that was added. Thank you for catching that.
Chris, any comments?
Chris Connolly, Acting City Attorney. We will make sure that the final version that the mayor is signing off on has that in there. And then we will bring it over and make sure that it's all in there by the time you're ready to sign it.
And that is just, should the ballot initiative not pass, the administrative committee will
Both the
disband, and she just wanted to make that clear in her amendment.
Correct. The interlocal agreement was already scheduled to go away in the event that it didn't pass. This just clarifies that the committee goes away also.
Any other questions for any of the experts in the room? If not, is there a motion to approve the interlocal agreement?
So moved.
Second?
Any final comments? If not, call the roll, please.
Christensen,
Yes.
Rabel,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Best,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously with 5 affirmative votes. Are there any other items to be discussed? Any public comment? If not, motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Rabel,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Best,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you.